welcome here. This is a great event. As I've been very lucky since 2003 to be a part of the GMC, first at Princeton and now at Lakota West. And I know this is the greatest league in the state of Ohio. I really believe that. And we have the best kids in the state of Ohio. And I've been at some other places as well, so I feel really comfortable in saying that. I also think that doing this leadership summit has been something that Mr. Wilhelm and some other people talked about last year. Him and I are pretty good friends, so we talked about it with some other principals, and we think it's a great thing. And it's just a time to get to know other kids from other schools and have that respect within our league. And I feel like we do a pretty good job of that. You guys do a pretty good job of that. But getting to know kids outside of the playing field or the band competition or whatever makes a big difference. And we all have our rivalries and we do those things. But when I get to meet the other principals and other athletic directors, whether I want to beat them on Friday night or whatever we're doing, we also understand they're great people and we're all working hard. So we welcome you being here. Thank a few people. First of all, Beacon Orthopedic. Doc will talk here shortly. But they are a sponsor here, do a great job. They work with us at Lakota West, and we're very lucky to have them. Miami Hamilton for let us use this space. We were trying to find a space, and Mr. Wilhelm found this, and this is a great opportunity for us to be here and for you guys to see a little bit of the campus as you drive through and walk through. Dreyer, I just met the young man back there. He's a sponsor now, along with Jersey Mike's, you'll be having lunch from Jersey Mike's later today, from what I understand. Also want to thank Mr. Wilhelm, Mr. Beck, who helped him out a lot, and everybody else that helped put this together. I didn't do a whole lot other than just come up here and talk, so they did all the work, and I'm here now talking a little bit. So I'm not going to say much more. I want to introduce now Miss Natalie Carley, a representative from Miami Hamilton.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for kind of letting me come chat with you guys really quick. First off, welcome to Miami Hamilton's campus. We're super excited to have you guys all here today. How many of you guys have been on campus before? A few? Okay, cool. Are you guys familiar with Miami Regionals at all? Maybe seen myself or my coworker Emily at your guys' high schools? Yeah? Okay, see some head nods. Cool. So just super quick, like I said, welcome. Also, just a quick plug for Miami Regionals. For a lot of you guys, we are basically in your backyard, so we could be a great option for you guys to come take some classes at, whether that be while you're in high school for CCP classes, or when you're looking at your full-time undergrad, we're a great option here. We have 19 bachelor degrees you can earn 100% on the regional campuses, so we have a little bit of everything. You can also start any of Oxford's degrees with us and end up relocating to main campus. Big perks of doing that. I promise I won't bore you guys too much with all this stuff. I know you guys are here to have fun, but two big perks of doing that. We are open enrollment, so that means for you guys all being first-time college students, you are automatically accepted to Miami Regionals. So first-time college student, automatically accepted. So no matter what your ACT, GPA, any of that, automatically in. The other big perk, and this is a big one, I know it was for me when I was in high school, is tuition. So our cost is about a third the cost of Oxford. We are only about $6,200 for a full year, and that's without any scholarships or financial aid yet. So we're very, very affordable. Great option for you guys right here. If you ever have any questions about how to get started here, if you ever want to come visit campus, definitely feel free to reach out to myself or Emily. Emily Johnson-Hughes is a lot of your guys' counselor. Hamilton, I believe you guys are the only one that I am your counselor. So between myself or Emily, we can definitely answer all your guys' questions. And again, just welcome to campus. Enjoy your day here.
Thank you, Ms. Carley. At this time, I want to introduce a young man who probably doesn't need a lot of introduction. He's a medical director for the Cincinnati Reds. And, you know, sometimes when somebody has a big job like that, I'd always seen him from afar, didn't know him other than see him on commercials. And then as he became our team doctor and is around Lakota West a little bit, you find out that he's just a good guy. And, you know, you feel like you can call him, ask questions, wherever things will happen. He's wonderful for our student athletes. So, Dr. Timothy Krimchek, come on up.
Thank you, Elgin. I didn't know we got up this early. I wasn't sure. Listen, it's a real pleasure for us as Beacon Orthopedics and Dreyer, who we work with closely, to sponsor this. I think this is an unbelievable, not only just a way to get out of class, but this is a great compliment to every one of you from your schools to be picked as somebody who's got a little something. You know, what is a leader? You know, this is the leadership conference that you have here, but what is a leader? Is a leader born? Do you develop a leader? I think it's a combination of both. You know, having done this for a long time, taking care of Major League Baseball players and high-level college, high school kids for many, many years, you watch who the leaders are. You people, you kids, you young people in this room are going to be the leaders of society in the next 15 or 20 years. You have a big responsibility. You're sitting here in these big schools. There are younger kids that are watching every step that you make. How you do it, how you study, how you treat others, how you work in a classroom on the athletic fields. How many here play sports? That's awesome. You know, I think one of the jobs that we have, people have asked me years ago, you know, you take care of all these big name athletes. The biggest responsibility I think that we have is to keep youngsters like you on the field, because I think sports is an incredible adjunct to you going off to the next level, educationally, professionally, personally, with your families and your friends. You know, you don't have to be the best athlete, you don't have to be the smartest in your class to be a good leader. We said all the time, and thought, why have the Cincinnati Reds not won? Every year we sit and say we need a leader, not just the coaches, not just the owner, but somebody in that locker room who's a leader, somebody who the others can emulate and follow. The 75, 76 team had it, the 90s team had it. The leaders, the people that would watch, you'd watch how they worked when nobody else was watching, how they were taking infield practice, batting practice, how they went about their professionalism when they were on the road, stayed in a hotel, studied the other teams. That's what leadership is. You know, years ago there was a young man who played football at LaSalle, one of my associate's sons. He was a linebacker at LaSalle, a very good linebacker. His name is Joe Berger. Some of you might know the name. Very good in town, wanted to go Division I, play football. Smart, worked hard, great kid, great family. He could have gone to Miami, could have gone to Central Michigan, all these places, full ride scholarship. His family all went to Notre Dame. He decided to go up to Ohio State. He didn't get a scholarship to Ohio State. He did not. He was not athletically quick enough. He wasn't good enough. He was certainly smart enough. And so they gave him a preferred walk-on. This is the kid who loved football and went up and was an engineering major. His first year up there, they redshirted him, didn't see a down, just worked his tail off. Second year, didn't play a down, just worked his tail off. Third year, you know, he's trying to study, do his thing, played maybe 1 or 2 downs, got on special teams. But because of the character and the leadership that he had, they voted him to be a captain of the Ohio State Buckeyes his senior year. This is a kid who never started, never played much, was on the special teams, but he had that ability to lead others. People followed him. He was a team player. He treated others well. The way he studied, the way he went around practice, the way he just conducted himself. Now he's a medical student at Ohio State University. I think he wants my job one day. He'll probably get it if he wants it. But that's the kind of people that you want to be. And that's why if we can teach you and you can continue to learn from these types of conferences, your mentors at school, your teachers, your coaches, your principal, your athletic directors, you need to follow that. Your responsibility here is great. I know you're sitting here thinking, I'm just a high school kid, but I promise you, there are 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders that are watching every move that you make. Watch what you'll do this year, next year, and beyond, and they want to follow your footsteps. So please take that seriously. That's why I think this is so important, and I'm glad you're here. So, thank you.
And my name's John Wilhelm, and I'm the principal of Hamilton High School. It looks awesome what's going on here. This is our 2nd year of this annual event, and we're very pleased that you are here with us today. So I have the distinct honor of having one of our juniors from Hamilton High School come up to introduce our keynote speaker. So if I could have Dylan Lee to come up and introduce our main speaker, Alan Stein. Yeah, give it up for Dylan.
Our speaker today spent 15 years working alongside the highest performing basketball players on the planet. He now teaches how to utilize the same strategies in business that elite athletes would perform at a high-class level. He is an author, a performance coach, and a frequent guest on numerous blogs and podcasts. A passionate father of 3, he now plays zone defense and never lets the kids win at tic-tac-toe. Please help me welcome Alan Stein Jr.
How many of you would have been a little bit nervous if you would have had to give the introduction? Yeah, he did a really nice job, didn't he? Thank you very much, Dylan. I appreciate that. How old were you guys in 2007? 5? So just little youngins, just little toddlers. Well, back in 2007, Nike actually flew me out to Los Angeles to work the first ever Kobe Bryant Skills Academy. Nike brought in the top high school and college players from around the country for an intense 3-day mini camp with the best player in the world. And for those of you that don't follow basketball, or at least weren't following basketball when you were 4 or 5 years old, it's important to know that in 2007, Kobe was the best player on the planet. And an important fact about me is I've spent my entire life in a basketball bubble. Basketball was my first identifiable passion, and I fell in love with the game when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I had always heard this urban legend of how insanely intense Kobe's individual workouts were. Well, since I was on camp staff, I figured this was my chance and this was my shot. So at my earliest opportunity, I walked up to Kobe and asked if I could watch one of his private workouts. And he was incredibly gracious, and he smiled and he said, "Sure, no problem, I'm going tomorrow at 4. And I got a little bit confused because I had just got done looking through the camp schedule, and the camp schedule said the first workout with the players was the following day at 3:30. And Kobe recognized that confused look on my face, and he clarified that with, yeah, that's 4 a.m. Well, I hope you guys realize, as leaders, there's not a legitimate excuse in the world on why you can't be somewhere at 4 in the morning. At least not an excuse that a guy like Kobe Bryant's going to accept. So I basically committed myself to being there. And I figured if I was going to be there anyway, I may as well try and impress Kobe. I may as well show him how serious of a trainer I was. So I came up with the plan to beat him to the gym. So I set my alarm for 3 a.m. And the alarm goes off, and I jump up, and I get myself together, and I hop in a taxi, and I head to the gym. Now, when I arrive, it's 3:30 in the morning, so it's clearly pitch black outside. And yet the moment I step out of the cab, I can see that the gym light is already on. From the parking lot, I could faintly hear a ball bouncing and sneakers squeaking. I walk in the side door, Kobe's already in a full sweat. See, he was going through an intense warm-up before his scheduled workout with his trainer started at 4. Now, out of professional courtesy, I didn't say anything to him, and I didn't say anything to his trainer. I just sat down to watch. And for the first 45 minutes, I was shocked. For the first 45 minutes, I watched the best player in the world do the most basic footwork and offensive moves. Kobe was doing stuff that I had already taught to middle school age players. Now, don't get it twisted. This is Kobe Bryant. So he was doing everything at an unparalleled level of intensity. And he was doing everything with surgical precision. But the stuff he was actually doing was incredibly basic. Now, his whole workout lasted a couple hours. And once again, when it was over, I didn't say anything to him and I didn't say anything to his trainer. I just quietly left. But my curiosity got the best of me. I had to know. So later that day at camp, I went up to him and asked and said, "Kobe, you're the best player in the world. Why are you doing such basic drills?" And once again, he was incredibly gracious, and he flashed that $1 million smile, but he said with all seriousness, "Why do you think I'm the best player in the world?" Because I never get bored with the basics. I never get bored with the basics. Kobe Bryant, the best player in the world and someone that has truly mastered his craft, said his secret is that he never gets bored with the basics. And that taught me a pivotal, life-changing lesson. And that's just because something's basic, it doesn't mean that it's easy. If it was easy, everyone else would be doing it. And as you all know, you guys are constantly told that it's okay to skip steps, that it's okay to circumvent the process. You know, especially on social media, people are always pressuring you to look for what's hot, what's new, what's flashy, and what's sexy, and just ignore what's basic. And that will be a grave mistake, because the basics work. They always have and they always will. And the very first step to you all improving your performance in any area of your life, it doesn't matter if we're talking about in the classroom, on the field or court, or what's brought us here today in leadership. If you want to improve your ability to influence and impact others, you have to admit that the basics work but you also have to have the humility to acknowledge that implementing the basics consistently is not easy to do. Now, I'm here for one reason and one reason only today, and that's to certainly share some stories and some concepts, but more importantly is to give you guys some sticky and some tangible, practical things that you can apply immediately to become better leaders, to become more influential and more impactful. And before we dive into that, I want to make sure that we're on the same page when it comes to leadership. Realize now that if you're in this room, you are unique and you are special. Somebody believes that you have the potential to have a positive impact and influence over other people, and they wanted you to be here. So you should be very thankful and honored for the opportunity to be in this room. I certainly know I am. But you also have to acknowledge that leadership is a skill. Just like dribbling a basketball or doing math, it is a skill. And how do you get better at any skill? Practice, purposeful practice. Which means if you want to become better leaders, you have to practice leading. And thankfully, there's no shortage of opportunities for you to do that. Once again, in the classroom, on the field or court, in your social lives, you guys are the ones that your peers look up to. They're looking to you for guidance. They're looking for you to lead them. And that's an incredible honor for you guys to have. A few other things that you need to understand about leadership is that leadership is a choice. And it's a choice that you make. So it doesn't matter if someone has given you some title or position of authority. It doesn't matter if you are the captain of the team or not. You still have the ability to lead and influence others. It doesn't matter what other people tell you you are. All that matters is you make the conscious choice and decision to be able to pour into others and have a positive impact and influence on their lives. And if you can do that, the best thing about leadership is leadership skills have the highest utility of any skill set in the world. That you learning how to lead more effectively at your age is the best investment that you can make in your future, because it will translate to every single area of your life as you continue to get older. Clearly, and I saw by the show of hands, I think almost all of you play sports. So leadership can be exercised on the field or court. It can be exercised in the classroom. But as you guys get older, leadership, that's the number one quality you need as a parent if you choose to grow up and have kids of your own. You need leadership to be an effective spouse or to be in a relationship. And I'll tell you this, for those of you that will eventually be in the working world, which is probably not that far away, leaders are always in demand, and leaders are always the highest paid. Leaders are always in demand, and they're always the highest paid in any organization, whether it's sports, whether it's business. If you can effectively make other people better by your leadership and your sheer presence, that is liquid gold when it comes to the real world. So this investment that you all are making now into your leadership is going to be something that's going to pay you dividends for the rest of your life. So between the fact that it's a choice and that it will always be in demand, you guys are doing the right thing by being here. Now, at best today, all I can do for you is plant some seeds. I can't make anyone a better leader in a 55, 60-minute talk. All I can do is give you guys some of the tools that you'll need to then apply those to your situation. But as you've already established, that's going to take practice. You have to practice leading. You know, if for those of you that play a sport, when your coach shows you a new drill, you don't get good because they just showed you a new drill. How do you get good? By doing the drill over and over and over for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of game-like repetitions during the unseen hours. And that's the other thing you have to understand about leadership. Most of what it'll take for you to be an effective leader are the things that you have to work on during the unseen hours when no one is watching. Now, as you see from the slide and from my introduction, most of my path has been through the game of basketball. So most of my references come from the game of basketball, but I have a very strong love and appreciation for all sport. And the things that have worked with these elite level basketball players will apply to whatever situation you're in. But when you look at a great player, please know that their greatness was earned during the unseen hours when no one else was watching. There were no cameras rolling, there were no cheerleaders dancing. That's when they made themselves a great player. What we all get to see when we turn on the TV and they tip the ball up, we get to see the result of those unseen hours. That's when they actually perform. So the same thing is true in leadership. If you want to be a great leader, you have to work on specific skill sets when no one else is watching or paying attention. And that's ultimately the definition of character, which I believe needs to be synonymous with leadership. And I'm sure you've heard that before. Character is doing what's right when no one is watching. I'm willing to bet you guys do what's right when your parents are standing next to you, or your coaches are watching you, or your teachers are watching you. But do you do what's right when no one is paying attention and no one is watching you? That's the definition of character. And the only way you can be an influential and impactful leader is by having high character. Now, I would like to dive into what are some of the other traits that you all believe are of the most effective leaders. I want you just to kind of shout out the traits. Now, this could be a teacher you've had, a coach you've had, could be even a friend that's sitting next to you now. But what are the traits of the most effective leaders that you've been around? This is where you guys say stuff. Yes, ma'am. Just shout them out. Passion. They listen. I love that. Hardworking. Dedicated. Influential. I'm in a room full of high school kids. Don't pretend like y'all don't talk. I've seen a lot of gum slapping for the last hour since I've been here, and all of a sudden now y'all don't talk. Give me some others. Come on, what do we got? Yeah, would this be easier if y'all text your answers to me? Or can you guys actually vocalize and speak? You do know that's an important part of leadership, right? Hey, and let me say this. Let me say this. I would never, ever rag on technology. I say that in jest. You guys have an opportunity to be a group that can actually utilize technology and social media and mediums like texting to make your influence even more impactful. You guys have an opportunity to amplify your voice way more than I ever could. You got to remember, I'm 43 years old. When I was in high school, we were just starting to have computers. Like, we didn't even have email when I was in high school, much less social media. So most of my leadership had to be done in person at practice or walking the hallways through high school. You guys have an opportunity to use these platforms to make your voice resonate even louder, which means you have to use it the right way. But what are some other traits? You guys just named 5 or 6, and to be honest, this half of the room is crushing you guys. But 5 or 6 traits. What are some other traits? Outgoing. That's cool. Driven. Was it courageous? Courageous. I like that. Resilient. Trustworthy. Okay. Now you guys are starting to get a little warmed up. I like that. Here. Passionate again. That's how passionate you are to say it twice. Maybe we should be a good list. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, just for a moment. You guys just named the traits of the most effective leaders. Now, I want to make this as basic as I can for you all. You just named the traits of the most effective leaders. So you actually have a blueprint and a list of the skills that you need to work on in order for you to be the most effective leader. You guys just told me what the traits are that you want to see in an effective leader. Now you need to work on those traits. Every single thing that someone yelled out, and I appreciate those that shared, those are the things that you need to be able to work on and develop those skill sets so that you can be influential. And what I've found from a leadership standpoint, that ultimately leadership is all about relationships. So leadership in and of itself is just kind of this isolated term, but as soon as we attach human beings to it and your ability to influence and impact, now we've got something that's tangible and movable. And there are 3 relationships in particular at your age that will determine how good of leaders you guys will be. The first relationship is the relationship you have with yourself. The second is the relationship you have with the adults in your life, primarily your parents, your coaches, and your teachers. And then the third is the relationship you have with each other and the relationship you have with your peers. So let's unpack each of those just a little bit. First is the relationship that you have with yourself. Do you have high self-awareness? Are you self-disciplined? When you mess up, and you will mess up, do you have high self-acceptance? When you mess up, are you able to move to the next play immediately? That's something we teach all of the basketball players we work with. Clearly, I don't want you to turn the ball over, but if you turn the ball over, can you quickly get back on defense and move to the next play? That's vital. That's one of the most important parts of being a leader. But above and beyond whether or not you have self-acceptance and self-discipline and self-awareness, are you taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally? Are you doing everything that you can to become the best version of yourself? Since most of you play sports and most of you right now appear to be very physically fit. That's awesome. You're probably paying attention to those things now because sport performance is something that's important to you. But when you get older and you stop playing sports competitively, whether that's in college or whether you get out of college, are you still going to take care of your body to the same degree that you take care of it now? Because the mental, the physical, and the emotional cannot be compartmentalized. These things are all interrelated. And I'm not saying that you have to be on the cover of Men's or Women's Health in order to be a good leader. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that you need to take pride in being able to take care of your body and your mind and your heart, because all of those things combined will elevate your ability to impact and influence others. And you have to have pride in taking very good care of yourself. And that is easier to do when you're younger. When you get older, those things become increasingly harder to do. So that's why it's so important now that you guys are creating great habits, and you're creating the foundation now that the rest of the house will be built as you guys continue to get older. So that's the relationship that you have with yourself. Next is the relationship you have with the adults in your life. Your parents and guardians, your principals, your athletic directors, your coaches, your teachers, and any other adult that has influence in your life. And I'm asking you, as a leader, your job is to do everything that you can to make their job easier, not harder. Is everything you can do to make your coach's job, your teacher's job, your mom and dad's job, to make their job easier, to reduce as much friction as possible, which means we do things like show up on time. We're respectful and we give eye contact with yes sir and no sir. We do everything we can to make their job easier. Let's just look at coaching, since that's where I've spent most of my life. And how many of you do play basketball? Awesome, love it. But you guys that don't, you know this will apply to you directly. As a basketball player, your job should be to do everything you can to make your coach's job easier and make their life easier. Which means if they have to spend time disciplining you, they're not spending time coaching you. Guess who loses out? You do. You guys should want and crave and beg for them to be able to pour into you. Because I'll say this, and I don't say this to diminish you in any way. I promise you that. I think the world of you guys. You guys are in the upper 1% of kids your age. But it's important that you have the humility to acknowledge that the adults in your life, your parents, your coaches, and your teachers, they know a lot more than you do. Right now, they know a lot more than you do. And that's based on life experience. When I was your age, the adults knew a lot more than I did. And for you to have the humility to acknowledge that and say, I want you guys to pour into me. I want to learn everything I can from you, whether it's in the classroom or on the court. I want to learn from you. And if they have to discipline you, then they're not teaching you and coaching you. If they have to motivate you, they're not teaching you and coaching you. So if you can come self-motivated and you can police yourself and hold each other accountable to the degree that you're always doing what's right, then you're giving your coaches and your teachers and your parents the opportunity to give as much to you as they can. And you should want that. Now, that is not easy to do. And I make this disclaimer. Everything I'm going to share with you guys today is incredibly basic. I have 9-year-old twin sons and I have a 7-year-old daughter. They would understand every word of what I'm saying right now. But just because it's basic doesn't mean that it's easy. It is not easy to show up every single day, to every single class, to every single practice as the best version of yourself. To show up motivated and ready to give your best. That is not easy to do. But then again, being a leader is not easy. Being able to have the type of impact and influence where other people want to follow you is not easy to do. Getting good grades is not easy to do. Being the best basketball player you can be is not easy to do. None of this stuff is easy. But that's why only a select few people get the opportunity to do what you all have an opportunity to do. So it's so important that you do everything in your power to make the adults in your life to make their job easier. And a lot of that has to do with being respectful. When someone is trying to pour into you and make you better, then you should give them the respect that they deserve in order to do that. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. And I'm not saying that everything your coaches and parents and teachers tell you is even right. There'll be times where you're right and they're incorrect. They're fallible just like you guys are. But it's the mindset of saying that I'm in a position where I want my coaches to coach me, I want my teachers to teach me, and I want my parents to parent me, and I'm not going to do anything to add friction to that. And then lastly is the relationship that you guys have with each other and the relationship you have with your peers, the other students and other athletes at your school. And it's important that you learn that the key to effective leadership is learning what's important to the other person. See, as leaders, what you want is not near as important as what they want. From a leadership standpoint, you need to be a servant. You need to be trying to serve others. And one of the best ways to be able to do that is what you mentioned, is being a great listener. You want to know something about someone, you guess how you find that out? You ask them. Let's not make any of this any harder than it needs to be. And once again, this is where social media can be an amazing tool for you all, because you can use social media to listen. You can use social media to hear what your followers and the people you have an influence on are saying. And then as a leader, you need to make sure that you not only listen, but then you act upon that. So when you guys have been kind of anointed the leaders of your school, which is why you're here, you need to take that responsibility to heart, and you need to do everything you can to connect with many kids as your age as you can, and then go to their sandbox to play. I'm going to share with you a few coaching mantras that I learned, and one of them is that it's not about you, it's about them. That is Leadership Creed 101. It's not about you, it's about them. And that takes a tremendous amount of humility. But I find that humility combined with confidence is what makes the strongest leaders out there. You guys have to believe in yourselves and believe in your skill sets, but you have to have the humility to acknowledge that other people and other people's perspectives are incredibly important. And I know we live in a crazy world. There's a lot of stuff going on. And there's a lot of... we need leadership now more than ever. Let's just put it that way. But part of having humility is acknowledging that other people see the world differently than you do. And that humility and vulnerability is incredibly important. You know, for those of us that are males in the room, we have to acknowledge that we don't know what it's like to be a female. We can try and have empathy and compassion and do the best we can to try to understand, but if you are a male, you will never know what it's like to be female. You can't. And that's not your fault. But you need to acknowledge that possibly a female perspective might be different than yours, and you need to be very respectful of that perspective, regardless of whether or not you agree with it. This is not about agreement and compliance and everything. This is about having the respect to hear other people's voices. We could do the same thing for anything else in this country that usually divides us. Obviously, race is a big topic. You have no idea what it's like, and nor do I, to be of a different race or to come from a different background. And that's okay. You'll never know what that's like. But do you have the openness and tolerance to be able to accept other people's perspectives and say, you know what, this person might view the world slightly different than I do based on their past and their background, and I want to be open and respectful of that. If you want to be a great leader, these are things that are not nice to haves. These are requirements. These are musts. And combining that humility with the confidence of knowing that you've earned the right to lead because you've put in the work during the unseen hours, that's what's going to make you incredibly unique, and as I mentioned earlier, unbelievably valuable in everything that you do. There's not a single coach on the planet at any level that doesn't crave leadership. There's not a CEO in any business in America that does not crave leadership. So as I said, if you pour into these things, not only will they help you in the classroom and help you on the field and court, these things will guarantee that you'll have a path in the real world of doing whatever it is that you want to do, because leadership has the highest utility and will transfer to anything. And then once you establish what it is that you want to do with your lives, and if you're looking for a formula for that, I'll give it to you now. You need to find what it is that you're most passionate about. Passion, I think we heard it twice. What you're most passionate about and what you're pretty good at, and then just find where those two things intersect. You find what you love to do, and you find what you're naturally good at, and you find where those two things connect, that's your strength zone. And if you can take the skills of leadership and apply them to that strength zone, you guys can do anything in the world that you want, without question. And there's more opportunities for you today than there have ever been. But you need to figure out what it is that you love, and figure out what it is that you're good at. And then figure out how you can work on these leadership skills and apply them to that. Now, I told you all about some coaching mantras. And these I learned as a very young coach, and they've served me incredibly well. But what's so cool is, as I mentioned earlier, not only have they served me well as a coach, they've served me well as a business owner, they've served me well as a father, and these things will serve you all well as leaders. I just told you the first one, and the first one, for those that were actively listening, is it's not about you, it's about them. That's the mindset you need to have. That's the creed of being a great teammate. For those of you that play team sports, when you can start to care just as much about the person next to you as you care about yourself, now you're onto something. Now you're being the type of teammate that others want to play with. And that's what everyone's goal should be. You should aim to be the type of teammate that people want to play with. You should aim to be the type of player that coaches want to coach. And these are all things that you guys have heavy influence over. So that first mantra is it's not about you, it's about them. The second mantra is you have to connect first and you coach second. But we're going to substitute the word lead since you guys aren't coaches at present. You have to connect first and you lead second. If you want to be able to have influence and impact over somebody else, over another human life, then you have to create a connection with them first. You have to establish trust. And you do that by doing all of the things that you guys just shouted out. You have to ask them insightful questions and then listen and figure out what's important to them. And that's called emotional intelligence. Many people refer to emotional intelligence as soft skills. I don't like that. There's nothing soft about emotional intelligence. The toughest people I have ever met in my entire life have incredibly high emotional intelligence. They're able to read and react to any situation with any other person with a high level of accuracy. Emotional intelligence is where it's at. But it's all about creating that connection first. Because that way you'll learn to be able, and we had mentioned this yesterday when I spoke to you guys, you'll have the opportunity to speak to a teammate or speak with a teammate, not speak at a teammate. There's a huge difference. So if I want to figure out what can I do as a leader or a teammate to get you to perform at your highest level, I got to figure out what's important to you. And I have to figure out, how do you like to be held accountable? How do you like for me to talk to you? You know, does this young man here, will he respond better if I come at him very directly and come at him, even if I raise my volume of talk? Or will he respond better if I wait till after practice and kind of put my arm around him and say something in a quiet nature? It doesn't matter what I like. All that matters is what he likes. Will he perform better if I call him out in front of the rest of you? Or would he perform better if I said something in private? These are all things that you have to be able to figure out. And as a leader, that's what you need emotional intelligence for, because it's all about creating that connection. Because if I can create a connection with you, whether I'm a coach, a teacher, a parent, or a friend, or a teammate, if I can create a connection where you truly believe that I care about you and that I want you to be the best that you're capable of, then and only then can I lead most effectively. See, if you flip those two around and you just expect people to follow you because you're the most popular kid in the lunchroom, it's not going to work. That's not sustainable. So it's all about creating that connection first. And then lastly, you have to understand that when it comes to leadership, the same is true in coaching, same is true in teaching, and I promise you this is the foundation of my parenting philosophy. You either accept it or you correct it. Those are the only two things in the world, accept or correct. If you are the leader of this group, their behavior is either something you're going to accept or it's something you're going to have to fix as a leader. That is it. I don't see many people taking notes, but if you are writing something down, write this down. Complaining is not a third option. Blaming others is not an option. Making excuses is not an option. You hold yourself fully accountable to accept other people's behavior or you correct it. And this is huge right now, especially with what's going on in your guys' lives. You know, bullying is something that's talked about all the time. And it's harder for you all today because now you've got social bullying, not just old school bullying in person. So I would imagine, because you guys are in this room, that most of you would be against bullying. At least I would hope so. And the very first step yourself is to make sure that you're never bullying someone else. And I think it's a pretty safe bet to say if you're in this room, you probably don't bully others. But then the next question is, if you're privy to some knowledge that someone else is getting bullied, are you doing anything about it? Are you accepting that behavior, or are you going to correct that behavior? And then if you choose to correct that behavior to make sure that that doesn't happen, then you need to make sure that you do so in the most appropriate way. And that's for you all to decide, whether it's go and tell an adult, whether it's to intervene yourself, whatever that you guys using your own discernment decides is the best way, but you have to correct that behavior. If you are aware that bullying is going on and you do nothing about it, you are not a leader. I promise you that. You are not a leader. You are a follower just like everyone else. So to be a leader, any behavior you see, whether it's on the soccer field, whether it's in geometry class, you're going to accept that behavior as something that you want to see more of, or you're going to intervene and correct that behavior because that's what leaders do. Now, any of you that have had some personal experience with that, know there's nothing easy about what I just said. You know, if I try to have the empathy of remembering what I was like when I was 15 or 16, there is no way that it's easy to see something like that going on and to be able to step up and do the right thing and intervene. It is way easier to look the other way. Way easier to pick another hallway to go down. Way easier to say, well, that's not me. That's not my problem. I'm glad no one's bullying me like that. I'm out of here. That is way easier to do. And it's also what most people choose, which is why if you want to be leaders, you cannot choose that path. So we accept it or we correct it. And once you get to the point where you understand how important those three relationships are, and you understand and you live by those three mantras, and you pour into them during the unseen hours, once again, you are separating yourselves from everyone else. And I hope you guys understand that that's what life is. Life is a game of separation. Now, you guys probably haven't played it for a while, but how many of you have played musical chairs before? Do you guys remember the premise of musical chairs? There's more what than what? There's way more people than there are chairs, right? Which is why when the music stops, you get that little anxiety attack because you don't know if you're going to get a chair. That is completely analogous to the rest of your lives. I hope you guys know that. Generally speaking, there are more kids that try out for the soccer team than positions on the team, which means it's a game of musical chairs. How many of you would like to go to college when high school's over? For the vast majority of schools, there are a lot more people that apply than students that get accepted. Once again, it's a game of musical chairs. And the more prestigious the university that you want to go to, the bigger the game of musical chairs it is. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I would imagine there are tens of thousands of kids that apply to Harvard every single year. And I would imagine it is a fraction of those applications that get accepted to go. That is a game of musical chairs. And it'll be the same thing with any job that you want. If you interview for a job, I'm willing to bet you're not the only person that interviews for that job. There's going to be 10 people behind you and 10 people in front of you that interviewed. So you guys have to start figuring out right now, what are the things that you need to do to increase the chance that you'll get the chairs that you want in life? What can you do to increase the chance that you'll make the soccer team, that you'll go to Harvard, that you'll get the job, or anything else? It doesn't matter if your passion is music. If you want to write the next Old Town Road, like, do you know how many people want to be able to do that? Millions of people want to be able to do that. But what are you going to do to put yourself in a position that will increase the chance of that happening? We've got the big explosion of e-games now. My young sons play Fortnite all the time. Do any of you play Fortnite? Not a single one of you. So we have an entire group of liars. I'm just kidding. If you want to be elite, I'm just kidding. If you guys want to be elite, even in something like Fortnite, what are you going to do that is going to separate yourself from everyone else that plays that game? And I'm telling you that relationships, emotional intelligence, and leadership skills can be things that can help separate you and get that chair in anything that you want. And you need to start making that investment now because it will start to build like interest in a bank account. There are very few kids your age, 15, 16, 17 years old, that are conscious of and aware of how important leadership is and why working on things like emotional intelligence is important. So you guys have a head start. You have an advantage because you're learning this stuff now. Now what you do with it is completely up to you. There's a very good chance you're probably faster than I am, at least at my age right now. But if you and I were going to race, you didn't have to look that confident. Dude, I'm not that big of a slouch, right? Like, I do okay. If you and I were going to race to that wall, your chances are a lot better if you get to start at that table than if you start right here, right? That head start is huge. That's what you all have right now. You have a head start over most of the kids your age in the world because you have a group of adults that care enough to put on something like this and put a premium on the importance of leadership and subject you guys to some different thoughts and some different skill sets. You have a head start, and you have to be able to use that. So when we talk about leadership, now I'm going to shift from looking kind of the way that you look at it through your own lens to being able to step up and be able to lead others more effectively. And as you see, I love to teach in threes. So we're going to talk about three things right now. We're going to talk about respect, we're going to talk about accountability, and we're going to talk about communication. Because if you guys can excel in those three areas, once again, you are separating yourself from everyone else. You are so increasing your chance of getting a chair, it is ridiculous. But every day that goes by that you don't take advantage of your head start, someone else is going to be creeping on you. So if I do give you that head start and you just stand there, every day I'm going to get a little bit closer to you. And eventually I'm going to be standing next to you and you don't have a head start anymore. And if you keep treading water, I'm going to keep inching up. And the next thing you know, I've got the head start. And even though, well, everyone in the room seems to be in agreement that you'd beat me in a foot race, if I got a 10-yard head start on you to that wall, you will not beat me. I can promise you that. That'd be impossible. And that's what we're trying to do. None of this stuff will guarantee you guys anything. I want to make sure you understand that none of this will guarantee you anything. All of this will increase the chances of you getting the desired result that you want. And that's what we're all in the game of. When your coaches coach you, they're doing everything they can in practice to give you guys an opportunity to be successful when you play them on Friday night. They can't guarantee that you'll win. If they could, every one of these people back here would be undefeated their entire careers because they're not trying to lose. All they can do is put you guys in a position to be as successful as possible. And now it's important that you start doing that for yourselves. So let's talk about respect. That's one of the reasons I believe this summit even started, was the administrators and coaches were noticing that there started to become a lack of respect amongst peers and from school to school. And respect is incredibly important. You have to have self-respect. You have to have respect for others. You have to have respect for the process. You have to have respect for the game. We've already talked about being able to have a respect over someone else's vantage point and opinion. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You and I can disagree all we want on anything, including who would win in this race, but we can do so respectfully. And I can say that, you know what, based on his background, he probably sees the world different than I do. Like if we came up with a list of ways you and I are different right now, there'd be a long list. Age is probably the most obvious one, which means we're going to see the world differently. And I can disagree all I want, but I can do so respectfully and professionally and say, yeah, I wouldn't do it that way, but that's okay that you would. And that is incredibly, incredibly important. So respect is paramount. Now let's talk about accountability. This is the key, especially for those of you on sports teams. If you want to go back and immediately make your teams better, you need to start holding your teammates to a very high level of accountability. And you need to be able to share with them that holding someone accountable is not something you do to them. It's something you do for them. Holding someone accountable, in my opinion, is a way that you show them how much you care about them. How many of you have ever had coaches that have gotten on you a little bit when you do something incorrect? Good. You should be thankful that they do that. You should be thankful that a coach cares enough about you to hold you to a high standard. That someone cares enough about you to say, I know you're capable of doing better. That effort you just gave in that drill is not good enough, and I know you can do better. Now, in the short term, because we're human beings and we're emotional creatures, the easy default is to get defensive, is to use the three things I just told you that will never help you. Complaining, making excuses, and blaming others. And that's what most people default to. When I call you out for not giving your best effort during that drill, most human beings will come up with a reason for not giving their best effort. They'll blame someone else. They'll blame the weather. They'll blame the fact they didn't have anything to eat. They'll make excuses. They'll point fingers. Well, she didn't work hard either. They'll do all of that. And none of that will get you any closer to getting a chair. Holding yourself accountable and saying, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, you're right, I'll do better next time. And be thankful that someone cares enough about you to tell you that. Don't worry about your coaches getting on you. You worry the moment they stop. The moment you show up to practice 3 minutes late and your coach doesn't care enough to say anything, or the moment you go half speed in a drill and your coach doesn't say anything, your coach has lost all faith in you. Your coach doesn't have any belief in you. They're done. They're tired of wasting their breath on you. That's when you need to worry. So I know it sounds really weird, but be thankful to have people in your lives that hold you to the highest level of accountability. And I know that at your age, that means there's no escaping it. You go home and your parents hold you to a high level of accountability. You show up for homeroom the next morning, your teacher holds you to a high level of accountability. Soon as school's over, you go to practice and they hold you to a I imagine it feels a little claustrophobic and a little suffocating. But boy, you are so fortunate to have those three different groups of people that care enough about you to pour into you and hold you to that standard. That is unbelievable. When you're older, you will realize how fortunate you are. Because when you're older, and you don't necessarily have teachers and coaches or parents that watch every single move, it's up to you to recruit an inner circle of people that will do that for you. I insulate myself with people that will hold me to the highest standard. That when I mess up, and I mess up every single day of my life, when I mess up, I own it, I acknowledge it, I learn from it, and I flush it. And I have people that will make sure that I'm doing that on a daily basis. You will not be in my life if you don't hold me to a high level of accountability. Because I'm at a point now where my performance and ability to do what I want to do is incredibly important to me. So I don't need a bunch of hanger-oners. I don't need a bunch of yes men. I don't need a bunch of followers. I need people that care enough about me to tell me the truth. And that's what you have to realize. The truth is a form of love. And if love is too touchy-feely for you guys, you can think of a different word. But when someone cares enough to tell you the truth, man, you should be very thankful for that. Which also means, if you guys want to be great leaders, you have to get in the habit of telling other people the truth. And how you tell them, with the professionalism and respect and tact that you tell them, goes back to your emotional intelligence. Like, I have something I need to tell you. I don't want to say it. You probably don't want to hear it, but it's something you need to hear. I need to figure out what is the best way for me to share this with you that you will respond in a positive way and your performance will go up. Very basic, definitely not easy to do. Now, with everything that we've been discussing, I have the humility to know I don't think I've told you anything yet that you haven't heard before. I don't think I've told you anything that you don't already know, either intuitively or intellectually. But here's what I know, having worked with some incredibly high performers. Just because you know something, it doesn't mean you do it. There's always going to be a gap between what we know and what we do. We know that if we see bullying going on, that we're supposed to intervene and do something. We all know that. But not everybody does that. Clearly not everybody does that. That's why it's still going on. So the key to performance and the key to leadership is being able to close the gap between what we know and what we do. And all we can do as the adults in your lives is plant seeds and give you these things, but it's up to you to do them. Like, we can't play musical chairs for you. We can turn the music on and off, and we can add and remove chairs. That's all we can do. If you want to get a chair, you have to be the one that goes and gets it. And in order to do that, you're going to have to make some changes. Because you need to realize, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Every single one of you, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you will keep getting what you've been getting. If you don't like what you've been getting, then you need to change what you've been doing. If you want to be a better athlete, you want to be a better student, you want to be a better leader, then you need to start doing more than you're currently doing, or doing it at a higher level. But change is hard. No one likes change. Inevitably, as human beings, we're wired to resist change. But change is always the prerequisite to growth. How many of you have heard of Kevin Durant before? Yeah, even those of you that don't pay attention to basketball know who Kevin Durant is. Well, I had a chance to meet KD when he was 15 years old because we grew up in the same area. And I watched him play basketball for a few minutes, just took a few minutes, and I was very confident in my assessment. One, this kid loves to play the game. He is playing his tail off, but he is playing with a smile on his face. He loves basketball. Two, he was very fundamentally sound. Like, his footwork and his shooting mechanics were pristine for somebody that was only 15 years old. Three, he had a very high basketball IQ. Like, he understood the game of basketball that would rival most coaches that I had met. But four, he was pretty slight of frame. You know, Kevin, I always get irritated when I would call him skinny, but it was clear that that was probably the thing that would prevent him from being the best player he could be, was lack of strength and power. Well, as a basketball performance coach, a strength and conditioning coach, I mean, this was music to my ears, because the thing this young man needed is what I spent my entire life trying to get good at. And it took a few months of convincing before he came in, because Kevin had never, ever gone through any type of strength and conditioning or weight training workout before. So this was the first time. And looking back on it, I got a little bit too excited, a little bit too jacked up, because I went a little overboard. In about 30 minutes, I had hammered him. He was in a pile on the floor. Well, keep in mind, Kevin at that time was 6'10". He was 180 pounds. So he was literally coiled up like an old garden hose. And his muscles were twitching, and he was sweating profusely. And like many of you, when we first started this, Kevin was really, really quiet. He didn't say 2 words the whole workout. So I had no idea whether or not he really liked the workout. So I just asked him. And he said, no, I didn't. But I know this is what I need to do if I want to play in the NBA. So when can I see you again, coach? And I remember being blown away that a young man your age had the maturity to acknowledge that he was going to have to make a change, and that change was going to come with a tremendous amount of mental, emotional, and in this case, physical discomfort. But he was willing to make that sacrifice because he knew making that change was the prerequisite to him getting where he wanted to go. And I want to make sure you guys understand that you have unlimited potential to be excellent in anything that you want to be. But in order to do that, you will have to make sacrifices. You will have to embrace change. You will have to outwork everyone during the unseen hours. But if you're willing to make those types of commitment, you greatly increase your chance of getting one of those chairs in anything that you want. And to put kind of a bow tie on all of this, and then I'll certainly take questions if any of you have them, what I believe is the most important skill set to performance on the field or court, to performance in the classroom, or performance in any area of your life, and is a requirement of being a great leader, is the ability to be in the present moment, to be where your feet are, to make sure your head and your heart are wherever your feet are. And this is where you guys, admittedly, have it way tougher than I ever did. And I don't know if my peers in the back will acknowledge it, but you guys have way more distractions and things vying for your attention than we ever did. I mean, I already told you, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was out of college, and it was a flip phone. There weren't even text messages then. So what you guys have to deal with on a daily basis of distractions is unparalleled in human history. And I have very high empathy and compassion for you on that, because it's not easy. And I know people rag on you guys all the time. And adults say, why are they always on their screens? Because they have them. If I would have had an iPad when I was 15, I'd have been on that thing all of the time. I know that. But that just means your discernment is even more important now. You guys have more challenges to face than we ever did from a distraction standpoint. And you have to learn how to be fully present wherever you are. And that's not easy with these distractions coming in. Which means if you're going to be with someone, then be with someone. Learn how to speak to other people. I know you guys have mastered texting and DM and all that stuff. That's great. But can you actually hold a conversation with eye contact and positive body language? Now this group, the answer is yes, because I can see that. I mean, I got to give you props, man. You have been locked in this entire time. I mean, his eye contact and his body language, he hasn't wavered a second. I don't even know if he's blinked, and I've been up here for 40 minutes. That's how locked in he is. And I say that with tremendous respect, because he's communicating something to me when he's doing that. He is communicating something. And he's communicating that what I'm saying is important and that he values it. But it's so important that you guys own these things and realize that these distractions are all trying to prevent you from being in the present moment. And yet the key to being successful is always being in the present moment. And with focusing on the present moment, I did forget that third pillar of communication. And that communication, and I'm glad that that's what made me realize that, you guys have to own the fact that you're always communicating something. Even when you don't think you're communicating, you are communicating. As I just mentioned, this young man hasn't said a word since I've been in the room, but he is communicating that he is a strong leader based on his eye contact and his body language. And he gives a quick head nod when he acknowledges something. So even though he has not said a word, he is communicating very loud and very proud, as many of you are. And we have to own those messages. See, every single time you interact with another human being, it doesn't matter if it's a 30-second elevator ride with a stranger or it's a teammate that you've had for 4 years. Every time you interact with a human being, there's only 2 things possible. You're either going to strengthen a human connection or you're going to erode it. Those are the only 2 things possible. And as leaders, we have to get in the habit of consistently strengthening as many human connections per day as we can. Which means how you do anything is how you do everything. My guess is this is not the only time that he sat somewhere and gave someone his full attention in the present moment. I'm willing to bet he does this to his coaches, does this to his parents or guardians, does this in the classroom. This is not an accident that he's paying this close attention. This is something that he has trained himself to do, and that is a great habit. But he's communicating something. So just make sure that you own every message that you put out in the world, whether it's in person or it's digital, that message is going to live on, and that message is going to strengthen a connection or erode it. And we have to get in the habit of strengthening as many of them as possible. So now back to the ability to live in the present. What I would teach all basketball players I worked with is the ability to play present. If you can be in the present moment, it is the only way that you can actualize your talent. It's the only way that you can be at maximum performance at any given moment in anything that you do. And to no surprise, there are 3 traits of living in the present moment. The first I mentioned earlier, the ability to move to the next play. The second I've kind of teed up and touched on, and that's focusing on what you can control. And the third is having a respect and trust in the process. If you want to be great at anything, you have to have the next play mentality. Next play. I saw hands go up that play basketball. You turn the ball over, it's okay, next play. You missed a wide open layup, it's okay, next play. I know the referee missed a call. It happens every once in a while in high school basketball. Next play. Because if you're in your feelings and you're pouting and you're showing bad body language and you're thinking, woe is me, because you turned the ball over, you missed the layup, or the referee missed a call, you are not in the present moment. And you can only be your best in the present moment. And as many of you know, especially in a game like basketball, while you're pouting and you're disappointed and you're belly aching over the referee, the person you're guarding has probably sprinted down to the other end and just made a wide open layup. So you went from costing our team 2 points by a mistake to now costing us 4 because you chose not to be present. The first is going to happen. Your coaches are not going to like it when you turn the ball over, you miss a layup, they're not going to like that, but they'll get over that very quickly. If you choose not to be present and you turn 1 mistake into 2, if they're a good coach, you'll be sitting next to them very soon because they can't afford to have someone out there multiplying in the wrong direction. So you have to move to the next play. You study really, really hard for a chemistry test. You pour everything into it, and you don't do very well on it. Next play. You did everything you could to be successful. Didn't happen. Next play. And maybe your teacher gets on you, maybe your parents get on you. That's on them. You don't have anything to do with what they think about it. You move to the next play. And that mentality is incredibly powerful. It's something I say to myself all of the time. Now, I don't say it out loud. People would think I'm insane. I say it to myself. Like right now with this talk, no matter what happens with this talk, no matter what happens, I have to quickly be able to move to the next play. Because I'm actually talking to Miami's men's basketball team later this afternoon. And I owe them my best. So no matter what happens here, whether I'm hitting the mark or not on this, I have to move immediately to the next play. Because if I'm worried about what I'm talking about with you guys, then I'm not present with them. And just like I'm present with you right now, I owe that to every group that I'm with. So move to the next play. Next part of that pillar is control what you have control over. Control the controllables, which is only 2 things. It's your attitude and your effort. Those are the only 2 things you guys have 100% control over. And I know that because they're the only 2 things I have 100% control over. But thankfully, that's enough. If you can pour all of your time, energy, heart, soul, and love into your own effort and your own attitude, that can take you places. So let's look at effort first. Most people acknowledge that working hard is a choice. Would most of you acknowledge that when you work hard in practice that you chose to give a good effort? Yeah. Well, that means by default, not working hard, that's also a choice. But that's usually, as we said earlier, when you hold someone accountable for not giving their best, that's usually when they start to blame others or make excuses or give you some type of complaint. And we simply can't have that. You choose whether or not to work hard in everything that you do. You're choosing whether or not you're paying attention right now. You chose whether or not to give your best during those minute to win it, or in it to win it, or whatever, I don't even know what it's called, something to win it, those games. You chose that. How many of you said, you know what, I'm going to give my best because I've got some other people counting on me, versus said, man, I'm too cool for school. This is goofy. I don't need to do this. That was your choice. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong, but you chose it. And you have to be able to live and die by your choices. Your choices are going to determine everything in your life. You make good choices, guess what? You have a pretty good life. You make great choices, guess what? You have a great life. And at the risk of sounding really condescending, if you make really poor choices, how could you possibly be surprised when things don't turn out well for you? You make poor choice after poor choice, and for some reason you still have the audacity to complain and blame others and make excuses for why you're not successful? I mean, that is absurd. And I say that with love and grace because when I was 15 and 16, I had many absurd thoughts. I've cut down on them. I still have them occasionally, but you guys got to know that. You own your choices. In the game of basketball, you choose whether or not to sprint back on defense. You choose whether or not to box out. You choose whether or not to step in and take a charge. You choose whether or not to dive for a loose ball. Those are choices. And we have to make sure that we own our choices. So that's on the effort side. On the attitude side, just realize that the vast majority of what happens to you in this world, you don't have control over. And it's okay to acknowledge that. But you always have control over how you respond and how you react. So when things don't go well, you get a C on a chemistry test, that's over, it's done with, we move to the next play. What's most important to me is how he responds to getting that C on that chemistry test. Does he use it to learn the information and be able to change his study habits so that when he does it again, he'll improve? That's great. That's what leadership is all about. It's about taking whatever goes on in the world and finding a way to use that information to make yourself better. Or does he say, the teacher hates me. Chemistry's stupid. I'm never going to need it. Who cares? It's a choice. And it's not even about the isolated choice. It's about conditioning yourself to always make the choice to pick things that move you forward in life instead of things that move you back. Because I'm not here to argue whether or not the teacher does like you or whether or not chemistry is important. That's beyond the point. What's important is something happened and you need to choose how to respond. And when you can condition yourself to always responding in a way that is favorable for you, that increases the chance you're going to get one of those chairs, now you've conditioned yourself to do that. And that's what we have to make a habit of. And then lastly of this pillar, and then I'll put a big bow tie on this and we'll be done, is respecting the process. If you want to get good at anything and you have these outcomes, I want to go to Harvard, I want to make the basketball team, I want to do this, those are great to have, but you need to focus on the process of what it'll take to get there. If your goal is to make the basketball team this winter, you need to wake up tomorrow morning and say, what can I do today, right now, that will get me closer to making the basketball team this November? That's all you need to worry about, the process. And maybe it's working on your free throws, or maybe it's working on footwork, or maybe it's working on something else. But you just need to ask yourself, this is in the future. We don't have to worry about the future, because that means you're not in the present moment. And that's what's always robbing us. When you're in the present moment, you have the distractions of the past. I got a C on that test yesterday. It's over. It's done. Or we have the anxiety of the future. Oh my gosh, tryouts are coming up in 6 weeks. Oh my gosh, tryouts are coming up in 6 weeks. Who cares? What can you do today? That's all that matters. That's all you own is the present moment to get you a little bit closer. And if you can wake up every single day and identify what you need to do to inch a little bit closer to whatever you're trying to achieve, now these days will start to add up. I always say that it's akin to a brick wall. If anyone is tasked with building a brick wall, don't let that intimidate you. I have no handyman skills whatsoever. I can't do anything to fix anything. I don't have that, but I know that I could build a brick wall. And the only reason I know that is I've conditioned myself to trust the process enough, and I'm capable of picking up one single brick and just setting that one brick exactly where it needs to go. And then I can pick up another brick and I just set it exactly where it needs to go. And as long as I stay focused on each individual brick, and I make sure that I lay each brick with care and precision, there's a very good chance this wall will take care of itself. I don't have to worry about the wall. All I have to do is focus on the bricks. Same thing. You want to make the basketball team this winter? You want to go to Harvard when you graduate high school? Ask yourself what you can do today to get you just a little bit closer. And those things will build like compound interest. So now to kind of sum everything up, we've talked about the 3 relationships that are most important. Do you guys remember what they are? Relationship with yourself, with adults, and peers. I love that. We talked about the 3 coaching mantras. This one will be harder. Or leadership mantras. Do you remember what those are? It's not about you. It's about them. I love it. What's the other one? What's the order of operations? We have to do what before we try to lead others? We have to connect with them. Nice job. And then the third one, we accept it or we correct it. You guys are terrific. Now let's talk about what are the other three pillars of building that type of culture. We've got respect. Do you remember the other two? Communication. Accountability. You guys are outstanding. Man, this is fantastic. And now, what it takes to actually live in the present moment, there are three things we need to be able to do. What's the first one? Being present, yes. But if we're going to take that one step further, that was great. What is this hand sign? I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. Next play. I turn the ball over, next play. Got a C on my chemistry test, next play. Got dumped by my girlfriend, next play. You have to be, clearly that wouldn't happen. I'm using some extreme hypotheticals right now. You move to the next play. What are the only two things in the world you have 100% control over 100% of the time? Effort and attitude. Think about how strong that one is right now. For basketball players, I want you guys to give me a numeric value. Hang on, shout it out at the very end. I want you to tell me what percentage control you have over what your teammates do, over what your coach yells, over what your opponent does, over what the referee calls, over who is in the stands, over if there's any scouts watching. What percentage control do you have over those things? Zero. Absolutely none. So think about this. I'm not a math major or a statistics major, but why would you put any effort or any attention into something that you have 0% control over when you have the opportunity to pour into the two things that you have 100% control over? Can you see how foolish that is? Worrying about what your teammates are doing or not doing, worry about what your coach is yelling, worry about the referees, which occupies most people's time, and you get nothing out of that. That is such a waste of an investment when you could put it into the only two things that you have complete control over. And then lastly, the process. Let's not worry about the wall. Let's focus on the bricks. Because if you lay perfect bricks, can't guarantee a perfect wall, but I can greatly increase the chance that that's going to be what will happen. And lastly, I started by telling you all about the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy in 2007. What I didn't tell you was there was a very special young man there who was one of the college counselors. And I'll tell you this, that at the time, he lacked the resume of all of the other players there. He was unknown. I'll also tell you he lacked the physical stature of all of the other players there. He looked like he was 14 or 15 years old, and he was in college. But there was something about this kid that was special. There was something about him that was different, and it was palpable the moment he walked in the room. Now, there were several things he did that I found really impressive, but the most important and the most impressive of all was at the end of the first workout, just based on proximity. We were standing about this close, even though we had never met. He said, "Coach, will you rebound for me? Because I don't leave the gym until I swish 5 free throws in a row." Swish 5 free throws in a row. Those of you that do play basketball, you know how hard that is. I don't care how good of a free throw shooter you are. Swishing 5 in a row is an incredibly high standard. But he wasn't going to leave the gym until he did that. There were a few times he would swish 4 in a row. He would hit a little bit of the rim on the 5th one. It would still go in. He's still perfect. He's still mathematically 5 for 5, but that wasn't good enough for him. He would start over. And if memory serves, it never took him longer than 12 to 15 minutes to swish 5 in a row. That young man was Stephen Curry. And Stephen Curry will go down in history as the greatest shooter that the NBA has ever seen. And it's not by accident. It's not by luck. It's not even because his dad played in the NBA. It's because he's willing to hold himself to an unparalleled standard. And that's the thought that I want to leave you all with today, is the standards that you set today, the habits that you establish today, they're going to determine who and where you guys will be tomorrow. And with that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your attention, your presence has been unbelievable. I don't know if the adults frisked you and took your cell phones away when you walked in the room, but I haven't seen a single person even look down during this talk. And that is a testament to you guys. So it was really an honor and a privilege to be able to speak with you, and I thank you guys very much. Did we have time for a little Q&A? Did anybody have any Q's? If you got some Q's, I'll do my best to have some A's. I also realize I'm standing between you and Jersey Mike's for lunch. So it's totally cool in the gang if you guys don't have any Q's. But if you're here, just know I'm here to serve you.
Coach.
Wait, hang on. I believe we may have one.
From an adult standpoint, what do you do with a player who's more about themselves and not about others?
So if I have a player that's more about themselves and not about others, first and foremost, I want to make sure that they're aware of it. Because it just might be a default that they have. They might not even realize that they have selfish tendencies. So I'm going to try to find ways to document and show them instances where they've been more about me than they've been about we. Because I want to make sure we're on the same page. And then I want to be able to learn to speak their language and get through to them in a way that will resonate with them and get them to understand that the only way they'll be able to get what it is that they want personally is if they make everyone else around them better and they contribute to the team. See, I was very fortunate. I spent 6 years as the performance coach at DeMatha Catholic High School. For those of you that follow basketball closely, DeMatha is one of the top 5 basketball programs in the country. I mean, we have really, 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 really good players. And Coach Jones, who is an absolutely brilliant coach, much like your coaches, understands that players are going to have some selfish goals and some selfish tendencies. Kids at DeMatha want to be McDonald's All-Americans. Kids at DeMatha want to play Division I basketball. Kids at DeMatha want to go on to be future pros. So he does a brilliant job of finding ways to use their goals that they have for themselves within the confines of the team to make everyone else better. He wants a player that's that driven because that's the player that's going to show up every day and give their best effort. But he wants to make sure that they're not doing that in a way that undermines what the team is trying to accomplish. And he makes sure that they understand, and this is absolutely the truth, you have a better chance of being a McDonald's All-American, you have a better chance of playing Division I basketball, and you have a better chance of being a pro if we win and if everyone on the team gets better because of you. Because coaches and GMs, they look for that. And coaches have very heightened awareness to players that are selfish and players that are out for themselves. I talked to this yesterday with the basketball team. In the game of basketball, on offense, there's only one goal. Take the highest percentage shot possible. That's the number one goal every time you're on offense. So you need to make sure that all 5 players on the court understand that and buy into that and decide each time down the court what is the highest percentage shot possible. Now, many times that means we want to get the ball to our best offensive player as often as possible in the positions on the court where they score most efficiently. That's clearly it. But if you have a player that is taking bad shots because they think it's their turn or they're trying to get theirs, that goes against what the team's trying to do. And any good basketball coach or scout will be able to sniff that out in a moment. So you taking a selfish shot because you think averaging 20 is most important is actually going to undermine your ability to get a scholarship because a guy with a good basketball eye is going to be able to see that and say, we don't want that here. If they're selfish in high school, they're going to be real selfish in college. Nope, no thanks. So it's about creating some awareness, coming at them with love and grace and being able to share with them why changing their behavior is in their best interest as well as our best interest. I can just stand here awkwardly for 30 seconds. I mean, you guys know we're doing Facebook Live right now, so we're just all standing here like meatheads unless you guys say something. Nothing? She was waving at the camera. We'll try and tag you later if that helps. All right, anything else from you guys? Certainly not trying to force anything. Just know that I'm here because I want to serve you all and I believe in you. I want to make sure, this will be the thing that I'll end with. Someone is responsible for you being in this room today. Someone chose you to be a part of something special. That person may be in the room now or they may not be. Just make sure you take a moment later today to say thank you for whoever was here, whoever is responsible for you being here and believes in you enough to subject you to something that potentially could make sure that you get the chair that you want in life. So make sure you tell them thank you. With that, you guys have a great rest of your day. Enjoy Jersey Mike's. Thanks. Great. Thanks, man. My pleasure.